Hey team, it's Conrad Tracy. I'm an addiction coach from Melbourne, Australia. I'm the founder of Addiction Coaching Australia and the Identity Integration Model. I'm going to spend about 10 or 15 minutes with you today working through what I think is one of the most important topics that I see all of the time working with people who are struggling with alcohol addiction, cocaine addiction, gambling addiction. And it's how do I socialize without drugs and alcohol? Now, I'm going to give you some actual tools that you can work through. And I'm going to talk to you about a multi-layered approach. Okay. And this is something that I think deeply about because there's always the things that we know and there's the things that we need to learn. And then there's the deep truths, right? And that's where the work is. So let's start here. If we just enter this little triangle that I'm going to draw, and please don't judge me on my handwriting or my spelling or anything of the sort. So if we do this, right? And then we think about three layers. We have to understand our why. Okay. So, like, why do we need to learn to socialize without drugs and alcohol? And, that could be a number of reasons. We could be, tired of the hangovers, tired of the lack of performance, things in our relationship that are not going well. Okay. And we could also be making a fool of ourselves. And they're the ones I commonly hear. Right. So, things are not going well in my life, my work, my relationships, and I'm doing things that are pretty, embarrassing. Like passing out, blacking out at, work functions, doing those types of things. I don't know if anybody can relate to that. And then the how is really like, how do we tackle it? And these are the things that we're going to focus on today, right? We're going to figure out your why, figure out the how. And these are really things like, how do we make a plan? How do we pre-frame, right? And how do we execute on our strategy? Oh, yeah, I'm going to go and I'm going to be fine. And then you're not. And then really what the truth is of the matter. And this is the deep work. Okay. So if this is the tip of the iceberg, this is really the deep work down here, right? Which is like you might be anxious, you might be a bit of a people pleaser, and you might lack confidence. Okay. So, oh, yeah. And also, like, you might have trouble being seen. Right. So these are the deeper emotional ties. Now, remember, we're going to start at the top, we're going to work through the bottom, and we're going to find out for you what is deeply, deeply at the root of this thing. Okay. So understanding why we do these things, I'm going to show you how to get a result. And then we're actually going to figure out what your truth is in terms of what's going on for you. Okay. So let's start with the why. Right. Now, what we have to understand here is that we want to avoid being a hermit. Okay. It is not the goal to give up drugs and alcohol so you can sit at home and not socialize. Okay. It's very, very important that you're able to connect to healthy dopamine. Now, to be able to do this, you need real world practice. Okay. So you've got to be able to go into social situations. You've got to be able to make a plan, execute a plan or a system, a reliable system, and get a result to build new neural pathways. Okay. I set out to do this thing. I executed it. It is possible. Right. Now, what people trip over is that they are not realistic about their capacity to do these things in early recovery. They go in on a whim, they go in unorganized, they're like, oh, I'll be fine. And typically they're not fine. So you have to be realistic about what is possible. And this is what we help people with in our programs like the Circuit Breaker every day. They're like, I've got to go to a 50th or a 40th or a wedding or an engagement. And we're like, cool. So where are you? When did you start? How much practice have you had? Are you actually capable of doing that at this point in your recovery? And it's either a yes or a no. And if it's a yes, we help them to navigate it successfully. Okay. You're going to have to be open-minded because the party is not over, but it's definitely going to be different. So you have to be prepared to look at other options and alternatives of things to create fun, right? Now, the biggest thing is that you're going to really have to be very, very aware of the deep subconscious pull, which is your drinking, your alcoholism, your behaviors, pulling you back into situations where they can take the reins. Okay. People underestimate the power of this. And sometimes in early recovery, it's better to let other people do the thinking for you. Okay. Or just to have sounding boards that you really, really trust. Take that guidance, take that advice. Okay. And more importantly than all of this stuff, you need to be able to communicate. All right. So remember, we're talking about your why. So if you can think about why you need to be able to learn this skill, right? And then you can take all of those things into consideration. I will show you now how to kind of roll it out. Okay. And we're going to talk about now the how. Okay. So some actual tools. Now, in terms of successfully socializing without drugs and alcohol, we've got a training called How to Successfully Socialize Without Drugs and Alcohol, or the Successful Socializing 3-Step. Try saying that 3 times fast. And basically, what this does is it arms people with tools like a script. It arms them with tools like the pre-framed text. And I'm going to drop one of those below now so you can see what that looks like. And this is one of our participants who practiced this morning. We teach people how to time box. We teach people how to bookmark. We teach people how to find a friend, right? And avoid others and spaces. And we also encourage them to celebrate their wins so they get the developmental, I guess, the growth of new neural pathways. Okay. So let's talk about the script. Now, going into situations with an idea of what you're going to say to people is critically important. Now, for anybody that's had my guide on how to break cravings and urges or has downloaded the training on how to successfully socialize, you'll know that there's that script there. And if you'd like a copy, just drop me a comment. I'll send it to you. It's pretty dry, right? But the gist of it is I've made the decision not to drink or take drugs anymore. I get better results without them. And I'm more than happy to talk about it with you as we get to know one another, right? So the gist of it is like, I've got personal power. I know what's good for me. I'm happy to communicate it, and I'm happy to set a boundary with you around how much I'm prepared to talk about it. And saying I'm not drinking and you don't deserve an explanation is not a way to be personable, I don't think. Okay. So some people might say, I'm not drinking, I've got a health issue, or I'm not taking drugs or drinking because we're trying to get pregnant, something like that. I'm not encouraging you to lie, but you need to have a frame. Okay. So that's very, very important. Now, the pre-framed text, and again, you've seen this, but I might drop it again down here, is just something that you send to people to let them know preemptively that you're coming. You're excited to see them, but you won't be doing A, B, C, D, E, F, or G. Please don't ask me to. Please respect that. And taking it back to the core issue, which is like, I love you as a person. I can't wait to connect with you. I can't wait to be part of your celebration. Okay. So the pre-framed text is a really, really good one to have in your toolkit. The other thing that you need to do is bookmark things. Okay. So we'll talk about bookmarking and then we'll talk about time boxing. The bookmark tool is great because it gives you an exit. Okay, so just say you've got to go to a 50th or a 40th or even a 30th, and you've got kids. Okay, the kids are a good one to rope into this because they're also a great motivator and people understand it. Yeah, so you go to a 30th, it's 10:30, it's still pretty early, but you know that if you stay a minute past then, you're going to be in the bags, in the wine, in the whiskey, in the alcohol. Having the bookmark of we've got to do something very early on Saturday morning is a beautiful thing to have in your kit. Okay, so you're going so early? Yeah, because we've got to take Timmy to Timbuktu at 4:30 in the morning tomorrow, or at 5 o'clock, or we've got to go to the airport or do something. Make it up. Okay, if your health and happiness is important to you, little, stories here and there are not going to be the end of the world. People will understand. The time box comes before that. I should have said this earlier, but I hope you're still following me and you're still with me. 3 hours is the max. Okay. So if the party is like, hey, everyone's arriving at 7, and it's a loose one, then what I would typically do is I'd get there by 8 and I'd be out of there by 10:30. Right. And I'd have a very, very clear idea of what I'm going to be doing in that time. And I'd be very strict about that time frame. Okay. And I would be sharing it with people that I'm going with. And what you need to do during those periods is you need to find a friend or a node, right, to come back to. Someone you can check in, someone who supports you, someone that you're safe with. And what I encourage people to do is go to the node, go to the person, and then go out to a safe conversation and come back. Go to a safe conversation, come back. Go to a safe conversation, come back. So if you're at a party and you're out in the open, so you're avoiding the toilets and the bathrooms and the laundries and the upstairs and the garage and the shed, you're in visible plain sight, drinking mineral waters or whatever you bought, and you're able to come in and out of healthy conversations with 3 or 4 people over a course of 2.5 to 3 hours, the time will fly. Okay. You've also got to make sure that you avoid certain people. So I will not be hanging out with them. I won't be going anywhere with them. I probably won't even talk to that person because if I do, things are going to go south very, very quickly. Okay. The other thing, once you've done all of this, you need to get home and you actually need to celebrate. Okay. Because your subconscious is telling you, you can't do it. There's no way it'll work. You've never been able to do it. You always buckle. Okay. So when we get home and we are happy and we are safe and we are tucking our kids into bed and we are thanking, you know, ourselves for the work that we've done and the ability to wake up fresh in the morning with them, that is the reward, that is the gift. Okay. And you have to actually give yourself a little bit of kudos or celebration for that. If you do that, you start to build new neural pathways. I can go out. I can socialize. I can make a plan. I can stick to it. When I'm at parties, I time box. I pick people to talk to. I pick people not to talk to, right? I have boundaries around where I will go and where I won't go. And all of those things encapsulated have equaled success. So I can now successfully socialize without drugs and alcohol. Okay. I reckon, well, I don't reckon, I've seen it happen hundreds of times. If you can do that 3 times in a row consecutively over the course of 6 to 8 weeks, maybe a social event every 2 weeks, then you're well on your way to having this skill. Okay. Because this is a system, these are tools. You take them, you use them. It works. It's repeatable, right? And then you develop the self-belief and confidence to do it again and again and again. And then it's available to you whenever you need it. Okay. It's just like learning how to play cricket or riding a bike or, learning a computer. So hopefully that gives you some practical skills. Now, I want to leave you with this, and this is your truth. Okay. Now, this issue that we have, when people come to me and they're like, Conrad, it's the socializing thing. Like, how am I even going to do that? We live in Australia. What they're really saying is, I'm really anxious, or I have no self-confidence, or I have no idea about how to socialize without wearing a mask. Okay. There's always a deeper emotional lever. Yeah. And it's funny because many of the people that I work with, they'll say, Conrad, like, oh, I'm the life of the party. I'm the it girl, right? And then they stop drinking and stop taking drugs and they realize that they've been so uncomfortable in social situations for so long that they've been plying themselves with drugs and alcohol and found that identity, but they're actually introverted. Okay. And that's a revelation for people. I'm not saying that that's going to be the case for you, but that's a scenario that is true. You have to understand here that you don't owe anyone anything. Okay. So if someone's going to be disappointed or, you're their wingman or wing person or wing woman and you're letting them down. Okay. At the end of the day, if they're going to put that pressure on you to harm yourself, harm your body, harm your mental health, they're not worth having as friends. Okay. So you really, really have to understand who you're letting go and who you're hanging around with. And it's a simple equation. Is my family more important or are my friends more important? It's your family every time. Okay. So pick the family, pick a couple of close friends that are safe. Figure it out. Am I socially anxious? Do I lack confidence? Am I worried about the perception of others? That's a massive one. Am I confident enough to be seen as my true self? Am I ready to go out into the world as my true self and understand that I will be accepted and liked? And that's the deep work. I'm telling you, because I'd rather you ask yourself those questions early. It might give you a little bit of an insight because what people typically do, and if you've watched this far, I'm so grateful, is that they'll make it about the drinks or the drugs or the logistical nature of the thing or willpower, right? And it's got nothing to do with those things. It's all at the back end here in the truth, right? So if you're those things and you know that up front, then you can come in and go, Conrad, you know what, I'm really anxious. And I'll go, cool. So let's work on that before we put you into social situations. Okay. You've got to understand the truth. I hope that this has been helpful. And what I want to do is just do a little bit of a recap, right? So we've talked about the why, the how, and your truth. Why do I need to do this thing? Why do I need to make a change? Why do I have to learn this skill? I've given you some really practical systems and tools that you can implement, right? And if you don't know what they are or how they work, just again, message me. I'll probably just send it to you. And then I've talked about understanding your truth. So why has this been such an issue for you? Why do you need to put on a mask? Why do you need to hide? Why do you need to come into a different persona just to feel social and feel comfortable and so feel safe? This conversation, this 16 or 17 minutes, it's just the tip. There's so much deep work here. This is such a big issue. And getting this right is a massive lever for sobriety and happiness. Okay. So if this has been helpful, please remember to give me a follow here, like, subscribe, send it to a friend. Okay. I'm just showing up here and it is what it is. It's not like high production YouTube because I want to give you guys something to dig into and something to think about. And if it helps you, I'm so happy. If it helps someone else, that's even better. And I'll see you next week on Friday. Take it easy. Bye.